Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of Unscripted and Unchained RPG Review. I am DM Bluddworth, and as you can see by the graphics, today's video is RPG A Day 2021, Day 11. So I'm already one day behind, which I was kind of expecting since I just came off a vacation. And I did a video yesterday covering an open box opening of my first ever white box of Dungeons and Dragons, so I was really happy to get that, and wanted to jump right back into RPG A Day, and hopefully get caught up by either today or certainly by tomorrow. I'll do days 11 and 12 and 13 at least by tomorrow because I have a game tonight, and I also have a new feature, not exclusively for my channel. Actually, I do have a new feature beginning this evening, a live show that I'm doing with the Evil DMs. So hopefully you'll catch that, and I'll be better able to advertise that weekly show that we'll be doing beginning immediately after today. So without further ado, day 11, Wilderness. So it just so happens that, as I mentioned yesterday, I got my white box. And so one of the three books in the three-volume set is The Underworld and Wilderness. So let's take a look at the way that the very first iteration of Dungeons and Dragons handled wilderness, and specifically wilderness adventures. So rather than actually using the book, so here we have Dungeons and Dragons Rules for Fantastic Medieval War Games Campaigns Playable with Paper and Pencil and Miniature Figures by Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson. The Underworld and Wilderness Adventures. So I'm going to show you the PDF portion of this, and just specifically the Wilderness Adventures portion. And let's take a look at how the very earliest iteration of Dungeons and Dragons handled Wilderness Adventures. So here we have it. This is the single volume that was put together. I believe someone had mentioned on my channel that this was put together and painstakingly retyped in 2009-ish. So, thanks for whoever, had done that and just produced this document. So Wilderness Adventures, the so-called wilderness, really consists of unexplored lands, cities, and castles, not to mention the areas immediately surrounding the castle, ruined or otherwise, which house the dungeons. The referee's map is a wilderness map unknown to the players. It would be for the territory around the dungeon location. When players venture into this area, they should have a blank hexagon map, and as they move over each hex, the referee will inform them as to what kind of terrain is in that hex. This form of exploring will eventually enable players to know the lay of the land in their immediate area, and thus be able to select a site upon which to build their castles. Castle building and its attendant requirements will be covered in Section 8. Exploratory adventures are likely to be the most exciting, and their incorporation into the campaign is most desirable. All right, and so we have our very first table, time and movement in wilderness. And so you have a man on foot can move 3 hexes, I am assuming in a day. Number of parentheses is swamp movement. All right, so yeah, so I'm assuming that's per day. So 3 hexes per day. A wagon or cart will move 4 hexes per day. A heavy horse 6, a medium horse 8, a light horse 10. Now hexes I thought were roughly 75 miles, so that seems like an awful lot for a light horse to move 750 miles in a day, but maybe the hexes that they were talking about in the earliest edition of Dungeons and Dragons a little bit different. A raft, either 10 or 3, is swamp movement. A boat is 15 or 5. A merchant is moving at 12. I'm assuming that's a merchant ship, which wouldn't be moving through a swamp. A galley is 20 or 6. A Balrog travels 15 hexes per day. A Djinni or air elemental 30. A dragon 24. And a Freet 20. A griffin 30. A hippogriff 40. A pegasus 48. A rock 48. A broom, I'm assuming that's a flying broom, is 40, and a magic carpet would be 30. So kind of interesting, some of the things that they made sure to include in that movement chart. Large party movements, parties numbering over 100, including pack and draft animals, will incur a 1 hex penalty. Parties over 1,000 incur a 2 hex penalty. And they include terrain penalties on overland movement, as you would expect. Hiring retainers. It seems to be something unrelated to. That seems to be unrelated to movement. So that's it. Encounter and combat. So wilderness encounters. Sighting monsters, players will see monsters at from 40 to 240 yards, inches covered to tens of yards for the wilderness, unless a monster has surprised the characters involved. And they go through the surprise rules. This is the same as in the underworld, except that the distance is from 10 to 30 yards, and if there are 3 or more monsters involved, they will have moved into the circle around the adventurers. Monsters at 10 yards distance will be able to attack. Wandering monsters, chases in wilderness. And we go into evasion in wilderness terrain. Pursuit in wilderness terrain. So you can see there's quite a bit of detail in this earliest form of Dungeons and Dragons. And let's see, I know that there'll be wandering monster charts. So let's see what it has to say about Adventures at Sea, which is, of course, a wilderness all onto its own. Encounters at Sea. Monster descriptions. This will be a long section. I want to get to random monster charts in the wilderness settings. Wandering monsters. Here we go. Wilderness design. So the so-called wilderness really consists of, they re-mentioned this. And so here we have wandering monsters based on terrain type. So if it's clear, a 6 on a d6. In the woods, 5 to 6. On a river, 5 to 6. In a swamp, 4 to 6. In the mountains, 4 to 6. In a desert, 5 to 6. And in a city, 6. This is for wandering monsters in those particular wilderness areas. And here we have it. We have the different types of creatures. You're rolling a d8 and then just double checking to see, cross-referencing to see what terrain type you're in. So if I'm in a swamp and I rolled a 5, let's say I am going to find a swimmer. All right. Actually here, a swimmer. This is the men subtable. So Waterborne, I could roll a d20, d12, I'm sorry, and this will tell me Buccaneers, Pirates, Buccaneers, Pirates, Buccaneers, Mermen. And that seems to be it. That is it for Wilderness Adventures. So as you can see, I'm going to switch views here. So as you can see, in the very earliest stages of Dungeons and Dragons, they were thinking about, both Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson were thinking about wilderness adventures, and specifically, they were talking about the wilderness immediately surrounding, whether it be the cities that you're picking up your adventures in, or immediately surrounding the area in which the dungeon is placed. And so not much more broader than that. So we do know that as Dungeons and Dragons evolved and other role-playing games came out, that they would have whole sections on wilderness travel and weather conditions and all other types of factors to consider. And then once you get into more advanced games, let's say Advanced Dungeons and Dragons First Edition, you have the Wilderness Survival Guide, you have the Dungeoneer Survival Guide, so you have entire hardcover books dedicated to just those particular elements of of running a a gaming session that involves traveling in wilderness or traveling underground. So once again, I hope you enjoyed this video. I know I'm trying to keep these things fairly short. And, thanks for joining. Thumbs up if you liked it. If you have any questions or comments, please leave those questions and comments in the comments section, and I will answer them. And if you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing. And I look forward to seeing you on the gaming screen sometime soon. So you all have a great afternoon. Take care. There's a heat wave here on the East Coast. So, stay safe out there. And, once again, thanks for joining. Have a great day.